Welcome back, everybody. Number 19 of the Innate Domain podcast. 1 week away from number
Wait,
20.
wait. Hold on. It's number Noonzen.
Noon Zen.
That's 19 in German. Noonzen.
Neunzehn.
Neunzehn. Number Neunzehn. How do you say number in German?
I don't know how you say it. I think it's Nama. Neunzehn. Nama. I think it might
Nama
be.
Neunzehn. Nama Neunzehn.
Yep. One away from, what is it? I don't even remember what 20 is.
Hold on. I got it. Zwanzig.
Oh, okay. 20.
Zwanzig.
Okay. One more week until then. But
Too bad this is going to be our last podcast, guys.
Yeah, this is our last podcast, guys. June 13th for the Daily Stoic. Life is a battlefield. Don't you know life is like a military campaign? One must serve on watch, another in reconnaissance, another in the front line. So it is for us. Each person's life is a kind of battle, and a long and varied one too. You must keep watch like a soldier and do everything commanded. You have been stationed in a key post, not some lowly place, not for a short time, but for life. The writer Robert Greene often uses the phrase, as in war, so in life. It's an aphorism worth keeping close because our life is a battle both literally and figuratively. As a species, we fight to survive on the planet indifferent to our survival. As individuals, we fight to survive among a species whose population numbers in the billions. Even inside our own bodies, diverse bacterial battle it out. Vivere es militari. I think that's Latin. To live is to fight.
Vivere?
Yeah. And then goes on. Today you'll be fighting for your goal, fighting against impulses, fighting to be the person you want to be. So what are the attributes necessary to win these many wars? Discipline, fortitude, courage, clear-headedness, selflessness, sacrifice. And which attributes lose wars? Cowardice, rashness, disorganization, overconfidence, weakness, selfishness. As in war, so these attributes matter in daily life.
I think that's a really good one. I think it's good, though. Like, I definitely do have that mindset that every person is fighting a war on their own, and you never, like, that's why I always preach be kind to everyone, because you don't know what battles they're fighting, because every person on this planet is fighting their own war in one way or another, whatever their battles may be. Everyone is doing that. Life is war.
It's really crazy to think about how everyone does live such a different life, and everyone is living in a war within themselves, not just against the world, but even in their own minds. And obviously doing all the things that it said, like those attributes like discipline, fortitude, courage, clear-headedness, selflessness, and sacrifice, those all do help you win wars against the hard times, because you do need to have you need to be a strong-minded individual to be able to get past the more difficult things
hardships
in life. Yeah, and then you see like the attributes that lose wars, and I think those kind of reflect on the people who treat people poorly or go about life in a certain way and act a certain way towards others. You see that they're losing that war of life because of the way that they're treating other people and how they're acting towards other people.
Yeah. Because on the flip side of it, everyone is fighting their own battles, so why are you being a fucking dick to them?
Mm-hmm. I think everyone should look at it that way. It kind of goes back to trying to understand and seek to understand how someone got to the place that they are, and they could have an opinion on something simply because they went through a whole war of their life believing a certain thing because people have given them a reason to believe a certain thing. And it's very interesting, too, because I actually got a call while I was at work yesterday from this lady, and it made me think about two different ways. Like, I haven't had so this person called and said that they were having a shitty day, like really shitty day. And I'm like, wow. After this call, I was like, I don't remember the last time I've thought about my day as being shitty, like being really bad. And pretty much she was just said she was on the phone with like customer service for a long period of time, and they didn't help her out because in order to get a reward or something, you have to create the account for longer than a day or 2 weeks or a time. And then she's like, I also, my car was broken into and everything was stolen and this and that. I'm just having like the worst day ever. And she's like swearing on the phone and all upset and stuff. And obviously that is granted to have a bad day by your stuff getting stolen and whatever. But then there was like, I looked at myself and I'm like, I feel like even if I have a bad day, I try to not think of it as that bad of a day, and I definitely don't try and take it out on other people.
Yeah. Because everyone could be having a bad day.
Mm-hmm. I think that's that's how I look at it too. Is like if who knows what other people are going through, I don't really want to put the stuff that I'm going through onto somebody else. Yeah.
That's 100% the reason I don't talk about my emotions, or if I'm having a bad day. No one ever knows if I'm having a bad day, and I'm always in high spirits because I don't want to burden other people with that.
Mm-hmm. I just remember like a lot of the time, or even like a lot of workplaces say that you should leave your at-home stuff at the door. And I'm trying to think about how I feel about that now, because then again, that person that called me yesterday, not that this was, I guess I was at work, but they weren't at work, but it was more of like they needed someone to talk to, and they might have not had somebody at work or at home or friends to go to. So they literally need anyone to spill their emotions out to, which is honestly what I felt like that person was doing, because there was just a whole lot of pointless stuff that I really didn't need to know. And I would have helped her out either way, but it really seemed like she just needed someone to listen to her. And like I said, I could have been like, oh, well, okay. So the idea of the call was that she wanted a birthday drink, and she created the account the day of, mm-hmm. which it doesn't work like that. You can't do that.
Yeah, I could have basically purchase.
Yeah, basically what the person on the customer service line said is, you're not allowed to do that. You can't. It doesn't work like that. And I could have said the same exact thing to this lady. But the person on the phone or the customer service line didn't have any empathy or sympathy for her, and was just like, yep, that's how it works. And we're not really going to do anything for you. And I feel like even if she was trying to pull a fast one on me, it's not my responsibility to worry about that. All I can control is how I can maybe make an impact on somebody's life. And I felt like in that moment, even if she was pulling a fast one, I feel like just giving it to her was the best option either way, just because it would have made a bigger effect on her than it would have on me in general.
Yeah, I mean, I do the exact same thing. As long as you're not coming in screaming at me, like if there's no hostility, as long as there's no hostility when you come in that door, I will do pretty much anything for you. I don't care enough to not. And I'd rather make your day better, because what do I gain from not letting you do that?
Mm-hmm. Nothing. You don't gain anything at all, and it doesn't really affect us.
You don't gain anything if you don't help them, and if you do help them, it usually makes you feel good that you helped.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's overall just like a really good purpose in life, is to just help others. I'm trying to think of, there was something that I listened to. Oh, okay. So actually this was a very interesting concept that I heard on a podcast, and the guy was pretty much saying like how he doesn't understand why billionaires want to be billionaires, because at a certain point getting more money has a diminishing return. So his point was like, the difference between having, and this is like on happiness, the difference between having 10 million and 100 million is minuscule. There's not really that big of a difference between having 10 million and 100 million in terms of happiness. But there's a huge difference between 40,000 and 60,000.
Yeah.
So as you gain more money, and like you think about 10 million to 100 million, you even go up to a billion, there's a diminishing return. There's not really that much of a difference between having that much money. Obviously, you can buy pretty much whatever the hell you want. But his idea was like, why don't these people with so much money donate to some charity or some place that makes a giant impact, because it actually lets them feel good about themselves rather than just like hoarding all of this money. I felt like that was like, pretty much his idea was like, instead of getting taxed on their money, they just donate all their money that they don't use in order to help other people.
I was literally gonna say that they do that, but they don't do it for the good of the people that they're helping. They do it for tax write-offs.
Well, I mean, I think either way, that's fine. But then he's like, this was, what was his name? Scott Galloway, and it was on the Modern Wisdom podcast. I think that's what his name was. But he was saying that, like, the top 6, I think it's the 6 most rich people in the U.S. have more money than, like, everybody in, like, the lower class combined. And that just doesn't make any sense. Like, how much of a difference they could actually make if they wanted to split, like, take half of their money that their net worth or whatever. They could make such a huge impact on the world, but they just don't.
Yeah.
And I truly don't understand that either.
It's really funny that you say that too. I don't have this written down, but I saw this graphic last night on Twitter. So like the average American makes like $62,000, but if you take the top 3 Americans, like top 3 earning Americans out of that, it drops to like 45,000 on average per American. And if you take the top 10 out, it drops down to like 36,000 on average per American. So that's how significant of a difference it is with just that top tier of people in this country.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I completely agree with him saying that they should donate all this money. And I forgot the exact example that he used, but he was pretty much like, you could use the money that you just don't use to fund like an entire school district. Yeah, district for like people.
That's what LeBron James tried to do, but it kind of failed.
Which is why it failed? That's kind of interesting.
Because there wasn't really any like standards. Like it was free living, free schooling, I'm pretty sure. But like they didn't care about like test scores or grades or anything, so no one was doing shit, and it kind of went downhill from there.
Huh.
This was a while ago that I read about that.
I feel like I feel like I remember hearing something about him doing that. I find it interesting that it fell through and they didn't have like some sort of fail safe or just kind of outline of like why they would or how it would go through.
I promise school. Yeah. A charter school in Akron, Ohio that is funded by the LeBron James Family Foundation made headlines after student test results revealed that hardly any students were proficient in English or math. So almost no one is passing tests in the school. So in theory, yes, it is a great idea to do that for like a school district, but you do also have to look at that. The fact that like if you go into an underprivileged area and do something like that, it may not always yield the results that you want.
Yeah, you're going to have to need some time. There's going to have to be some sort of time period, 10 years, 15 years, to be able to see some sort of change. Yeah. But it's also not just investing in the kids. You have to invest in like
teachers and materials.
Yeah.
A curriculum.
And the environment that they're living in. So like, yeah, they could go to school and learn and stuff, but if they go back home and their living environment's pretty bad,
they're not going to gain anything from school then.
Well, yeah, they're not going to want to. I mean, they actually might want to go to school more, but they might still end up in a poor situation because of their
things that are out of their control.
Yeah, exactly. That's just sad at that point. But I thought that was such an interesting thing to talk about, like the diminishing returns and how much money you gain over time. 40,000 to 60,000. I think that would be insane of a difference. Like, I feel like we would be making, obviously it's not double, but we'd be making like 1.5 times we would make it per month. And I don't even know like what I would do with that extra like $1,500.
Yeah. That would be like a significant amount of money for us, where that's pocket change for fucking.
Yeah.
He could fucking Jeff Bezos could wipe his ass with $1,500. And he'd probably make more than $1,500 in the time it took him to wipe his ass.
He probably makes that in like a second or a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely absurd.
Well, we started this off with the Daily Stoic about war. So I kind of want to talk about something that was war related. Um, so did you hear about Russia sending? There's a nuclear submarine. Like at one point, it was close to 25 miles off the coast of Florida.
I saw that picture that the Christian sent us. I don't know if that's what it was.
That yeah. So the first story I read said they surfaced 66 miles off of Florida's coast. There hasn't been subs this close to U.S. territories for a while. The last time something like this happened was during the Cold War when the United States and Russia were both, I have a big red button, I have a bigger red button. And we almost were on the brink of nuclear war. And that got even worse when fucking like an American pilot was shot down over Cuba. So we haven't been at this high of attention with a country since around then. We're this close to home. And now an update that I found says that China and Russia are working on setting up permanent military facilities inside Cuba, just 90 miles off of the U.S., off the coast. And they want to set up permanent facilities. And the reason that this is bad is because I also was reading into another huge like black swan event that I cannot find talked about anywhere on American media, but it is happening 100%. So the dollar has been like the gold standard for global trade for a long time. And you know how we've talked about before how certain countries in the world are trying to move towards a new world currency and get rid of the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So Saudi Arabia, this I probably have like I have so much fucking info on this right now because I was reading about this for probably an hour and a half. But so Saudi Arabia ditched the US dollar. It was the system that we used, it was called the petrodollar system.
Okay.
And it was the system in place for 75 years marked the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, granting economic stability and access to rising asset prices. The arrangement between the US and Saudi Arabia helped preserve the US dollar's dominance over global trade. However, this past Sunday, the Saudi Arabian prince announced that he would not renew the contract, signaling a major change in the global financial landscape. This agreement, initiated after World War II, allowed the U.S. to control the world's energy, and its impact on the standard of living for Americans is substantial. The petrodollar system replaced gold as the standard of value and enabled the U.S. to maintain dominance over international trade. The reasons that Saudi Arabia canceled the contract are not known. But the U.S. dollar being removed from this, it could signal the end of America's global financial dominance and raises the question of what the U.S. is famous for exporting that the world is buying. And the only thing that we export that the whole world uses is the U.S. dollar. So with this happening, it could like completely destroy our economy.
So why is it so important that Saudi Arabia is like? Why is it that Saudi Arabia is doing this that it's going to impact us?
Because Saudi Arabia is like the biggest oil exporter in the world, and they use the US dollar as the like basis of what oil costs. So like this is another interesting thing that I found on this. Where is it? So there are more $100 bills in Russia than there are in the USA. That was because of the petrodollar, which is the oil standard.
Yeah. Okay.
This is all going away, and there's going to be a precipitous drop of the value of the US dollar. This is bigger than most people can grasp, mostly because the petrodollar was never explained to them in the first place. This means soon the US dollar will no longer be the reserve currency of the world, and that will spark a Great Depression inside the US that we cannot print money to fix.
So, okay, with this issue, right, what type of currency would they move on to then? And like, why was like the US dollar like the most important to begin with?
Because the US dollar was like just the global trading standard for a long time. And this deal that Nixon made back in the, or no, Henry Kissinger in 1974 brokered this $50 deal with the Saudis that made it so that oil trade would be dominated. Like it was a contract saying the US dollar will be the only currency used to trade oil. So we had dominance over it. And now Saudi Arabia is exploring the idea of using like, it was like Chinese yen, and there was a couple other currencies that they wanted to use on it. But this would basically make it so that the US has no real exporting value. Like we're not pushing anything out of this country of value besides the US dollar, and oil is one of the biggest trading things in the world. And now if the US dollar is not the gold standard for oil, it's going to tank our economy because we don't export anything else.
In this, in what you read, was there like okay, this is what the U.S. needs to do to be able to combat this problem? Because like, okay, obviously Saudi Arabia is like the biggest port for oil and stuff, but do you really think that there is other oil sectors, right? So do you think it's going to start kind of like a train where, okay, Saudi Arabia is the biggest here, then the next oil company is going to be like, okay, well, we're just going to follow on their path? Because like, don't you think it has to do with like relationships? Like obviously Saudi Arabia and the US have some sort of relationship in that contract that they've made, but not all other countries are as wealthy as, I say, obviously Saudi Arabia would be, because they have like that bargaining chip. They are the biggest
oil producer.
So yes, they are the biggest one, but I don't know if this would correlate to like all the other ones, because they want to keep that good kind of rep with the US.
It's kind of hard to say. I feel like that could happen, but this is a very gray area, and anything that I found on this wasn't like sided toward Americans. Like I had to read, it was like a Middle Eastern news page that I found on Google. Like I found a few like finance Twitter pages that were talking about this. I found it on one first, tried to find it on Google and do more research on it, could barely find anything about it. There was not a single US news source that is covering this. And then I went back onto Twitter to do more research and found a couple finance guys that talked about it a bit more and explained it, but none of them said what the US can do to recover from this, because like this is, one of them said this is like a black swan event that should be talked about a lot, but it's not, because it would incite fear in our people. Yeah. But there was nothing on what the US could do to combat it, because there was no US sources reporting on it.
Huh. That's just interesting too, because if you look at like a Middle Eastern newspaper, they're probably going to be a little bit skewed just because it's not a U.S. newspaper. So they could have been saying things that were more in like fonded towards
that country,
Saudi Arabia, of course. But it is interesting that there isn't any U.S. sources that have.
I made it to like the fourth page of Google and did not find a single U.S. news source talking about this.
Which, I don't know, I get the, okay, it's going to spark some controversy, or it's going to spark some people to start worrying about this and that. Then again, I feel like that could be a good thing, because it would make people realize that there needs to be a change, right? Yeah. And I guarantee if this is really that big of an issue, there's just some sort of, all the politicians right now, it should be trying to figure out something that's going to combat this situation.
And I'm sure they are, and that's why you're not seeing it in American media, because they don't want to talk about this without a solution at hand. Yeah. But it is still scary to think about, because this is a very, very, very big happening that could very well just completely diminish the value of the US dollar. It could fuck our economy completely if something's not done about it.
I'm just curious on like how, in comparison to like other countries, we would be affected, because like, I mean, if you think about like Canada, like they make jokes in that they don't even have like real money. Like they literally say like their money's not even real money, because like the value on it is so bad.
Yeah.
So
we would almost become like one of those type of first world countries where we're still a first world country, but we're a poor first world country like
So
Canada.
so like the pound, what is like the most valuable currency right now? Is it the pound? Because I think the
I
pound is the most right now.
Yeah, I think it's the GBP.
Because like, okay, what do they technically trade and export that is keeping their economy higher than our economy? Top 10
Oh,
highest valued
my
goods.
headset's fucking boop beep boop beep boop beep disconnecting. You said what do they trade? What?
Like, what does the Great British Pound, if they have like the highest currency value, what is their export? What do they export that is keeping them above everybody
It's
else?
I feel like it's actually not the GBP. It's the Kuwaiti dinar.
Kuwaiti dinar.
Yeah, from Kuwait, which is an oil country, I think.
Huh.
1 dinar buys 3.26 US dollars.
Wow. The highest valued currency in the world is the Kuwaiti dinar. Since it was produced in 1960, the dinar has consistently ranked as the world's most valuable currency. Kuwait's economic stability, driven by its oil reserve and tax-free system, contributes to its high demand for its currency. Huh. So it's Kuwait dinar,
And they
Bahraini
export
dinar,
oil.
Omani rial, Jordanian dinar, the
These
Great
are all
British
Middle
pound,
Eastern countries that
Gibraltar pound, Cayman Islands dollar, Swiss franc, euro, and then the US dollar.
so we're number 10.
We are the 10th, yes. So, but the reason that the US dollar is the most
It's
traded
10th
is
because we
because
export the most dollars. And Great Britain has just held power for so long that I think that's why they hold value. Because
that's
Great Britain dominated half of the world at one point. There's a lot of these big first world country superpowers that their only export is the power they hold.
huh. That's crazy, dude. Can you imagine going to Kuwait and have to freaking pay 3.25 per dollar
Yeah.
currency exchange? It's like I mean, I've gone to Europe, but when I went to Germany, the euro was only like it was like a cent or a few more than the US dollar. So like the conversion rate was obviously nothing.
Almost 1-to-1. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like $1.08 right now for the euro, but that's kind of crazy that the US is the most traded or the most exported, and that we are, possibly moving into a different. I'm just curious on what the currency. I mean, you said like the yen, but like that doesn't really make sense. I feel like the Chinese yen doesn't really make that much sense to start trading unless they just want to try and shift the power scale. Like instead of moving the power, like I guess like all these countries might be working together to be like, okay, we don't like the US. We're just going to do this on purpose so that the US doesn't have as much power over everybody else.
That could honestly be
sense.
It said that Saudi Arabia had they didn't give a reason behind why they were canceling the contract, so that could be a big part of it is just we hold power over the US now because we just fucked your economy.
Yeah, I mean, you see them making a presence in a bunch of different aspects, like we talked about in the whatever episode it was about them investing into more professional sports and trying to get people to come over to
their country. Yeah.
And all these are probably ways of trying to just take power from the U.S. in little bits and pieces.
Yeah,
because eventually, obviously, over time, will become a bigger issue.
And they see that we're weak as a country right now because we are.
I'm just curious on like when we'll see a big move from the U.S. that will try and like combat these issues that are going on. What's up, Chad?
Hey. But yeah, I don't know if we have plans set in place to combat these issues either. Like, I have no understanding of what the country could do to fix this problem because as far as I understand now, there's not really much we can do.
Yeah, what also makes me think is like you said, those finance guys or whatever on Twitter. It's like, what information do they possibly have other than just like, I'm gonna make some bold claim on Twitter, and just assume that the bad is or the worst is going to happen to the U.S. because these people are backing out from
Oil
using the
deals.
U.S. as the biggest exported currency in the world. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's just there's so much speculation that it's hard to tell what's really going on. And I don't know. It's also one of those situations where we might never know what actually is going on until something really big happens.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of I mean, especially with talking about money and like oil sectors and stuff, it's a pretty big topic that they don't necessarily just want to come out and be like, oh no, we just lost our biggest oil producer and we're no longer partnering with them. But then again, it could light a fire under
Our
everybody's
asses.
and start digging for oil in the U.S. again or something. I don't know.
Yeah. My grandparents got land with oil in fucking Texas, I'm pretty sure. Maybe we'll be oil tycoons.
Hmm.
But I just had a really good thought in my head and it's gone. Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't a good thought. It was something fucking stupid. I was going to say you need to clip this part so that the oil heads can fucking yell at me on TikTok again.
Say that the U.S. is dying, going down.
Yeah.
It's going down to 50 cents.
The U.S. is fucked. The U.S. dollar is going down to 10 cents compared to the GBP. All right, here, I'm going to show you guys this really quick. I'm almost done with the bag, so I got to do it. Look at this candy. It's peelable gummy mango candy. The outer shell is like the toughness of like mango skin. And you can peel it all off and pop out the inside, which is like the inner part of a mango. Kind of fuck this one up. But it is probably one of the best American-made candies I've ever had.
And it's from Walgreens.
Uh-huh. They're like under, or maybe $1.99 a bag at most. And there's fucking banana ones too.
What the heck? That's crazy. Well, why would you want to eat the peel of a banana? Does it taste like a peel of banana too?
Yeah. Just
That's
like
my
it.
favorite part.
Yeah. There's a lot of potassium.
Yeah, the inside you're supposed to throw away, right?
Yeah.
All right, I have okay, so this is actually an interesting topic that randomly popped up for me, but I'm going to start off with a question. Have you ever experienced a thought and an action that contradicted one another?
Like, I think I shouldn't be doing this, but I do it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
you did that, and like knowing that even though you're doing that specific action, you supported the thought of not doing it.
Yeah. I've done that a lot. It's called discipline. I don't want to go to fucking work.
Okay, well, it's a little different. So, the idea of this, maybe this will give you like a better, like,
grasp on what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So I don't know why I thought about this morning, but randomly, just walking around, I thought about these two words. It was called cognitive dissonance, and I literally I didn't hear it.
Cognitive dissonance.
I didn't hear it. I wasn't listening to anything. All of a sudden, the idea of cognitive dissonance just popped into my head. So the definition would be the state of discomfort felt when two or more modes of thought contradict each other. The clashing cognitions may include ideas, beliefs, or the knowledge that one has behaved in a certain way. And the theory of cognitive dissonance proposes that people are averse to inconsistencies within their own mind. And a very clear example of this is like when someone's lying and it clashes with their own mind because they consider themselves an honest person. So this is something related to something George Orwell coined called double thinking. Double thinking is the suppression of the natural human tendency to be bothered by logical contradiction. In his book 1984, one of the totalitarian horrors was to make people say and believe contradictory things such as war is peace and freedom is slavery. So what they said in this article on Psychology Today is actually that cognitive dissonance is is pretty much the opposite thing of double thinking. Is that just because someone's telling you something, for example, like War and Peace in that book, people are believing it because someone is telling that to them. So who created this was a psychologist named Leon Festinger, who wanted to test this theory even further by joining a doomsday cult and seeing their reactions and explanations on why the world didn't end when it was supposed to end. What he found was that those most invested in the cult sometimes who have left their families and jobs, selling all their possessions, were most likely to concoct the most preposterous reasons why the predicted end of the world had been postponed. And they would come up with like these random things, like just like you could think of anything super preposterous and they would just believe it. Pretty much.
The
just
asteroid missed.
Yeah, like what they tell themselves is what they believe. Pretty much. So he actually went in and did an experiment about this. And this experiment was to get people to do an absurdly boring task for 1 hour at a time. And this specific task was turning a peg on a board. And then that person doing that task would have to tell the next person or the participant that the activity is actually fun. So going into the experiment, to my knowledge, is you were told you were going to do a very boring task. But then when you went in, the person before you was telling you that this task was going to be fun. But then like the catch is that some of these people were actually paid $1 and some were paid $20. Now this was this experiment was in the 1950s, so like $20 was like a relatively good amount of money.
Yeah.
And what they found is that the people who were only paid $1 came out happier and felt that they learned more than the people that went in knowing that they were paid $20. And the reasons for this was that the people that were paid $20 knew that they were bored. But that's okay. They were paid $20 to be bored. And the quote says, it's called work because they have to pay you to do it. But the $1 people had a problem, and an internal problem, which is that they wasted an hour of their lives and got like very little back for it. So it was like they had this internal issue to them. They're like, okay, well, I'm going in getting paid $1. But they're also like, I don't want to waste my time, but I also want to have a good time while I'm doing it.
Yeah. So they made it fun?
Yes, so it's like the whole idea was like it wasn't the fact that people were telling them that it was going to be fun. It was that they made it fun for themselves, so they weren't relying on people telling them what to do pretty much.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just for some reason like this was very interesting to me because it was so random. And there were some very basic examples of this and I thought it was kind of iffy and skeptical. Like one of the ideas I saw was you like eating meat, but you love animals.
I know someone that has that problem.
But I'm like, okay, I can understand that, but on a daily basis, I don't really think about the animals that I'm eating. Like when I'm eating steak or something, I'm not.
Hey, it had a face.
Yeah, like because that's just gonna give you some weird thoughts, and obviously that's going to make you feel a certain way about things. Go ahead.
Like, I love animals. I love cows. My profile picture for Steam, Discord, fucking my Discord server, fucking pretty much anything on my computer that I can have a profile picture for, my profile picture is a cow. But I fucking love beef. It is my favorite meat. I will eat a burger every day of the week and not be satisfied. I could pound fucking steak, but that doesn't mean I don't love cows.
Mm-hmm. I just this like went into like obviously a more psychological aspect because it offers like an explanation for why people sometimes like make an effort to adjust their thinking and their thoughts based on their actions compared to their thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of an idea of like how I have related to this because like I didn't think about how you thought about it at the beginning. It's like discipline where it's like your mind was like, you shouldn't do this, or I don't want to do this, but I do it anyways. Yeah, of course. But I'm trying to think of the difference between that and like the discipline aspect to it because
it is a good kind of way to think about it. Is a lot of that comes with discipline, but not necessarily. I understand what you're trying to say that it's not 100% discipline, but I don't know how to describe that either.
Yeah, because I feel like that's definitely a fine line. I feel like it's more of like I don't know because you could think of like, oh, I know that this action is going to affect me directly, but I should do it anyways. Because I guess you're thinking of it, I feel like the discipline part is like the good part of it, where like the cognitive dissonance is like
The bad
this thing
part.
is going to negatively affect me.
Yeah. It would be like being on your last $100 for the week and you gamble it. You're like, oh, I'm gonna try to hit on a parlay. Fucking, I'll make rent if I do that, and then you lose it, and you know you shouldn't have done it, but you did it anyways. And that would be the complete opposite of discipline, actually, which would be cognitive dissonance, I guess.
Yeah, because then you're like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's like those situations that you have to listen to your mind and fight back against it to tell yourself I shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
I feel like
I do feel like that comes with beating that. Just comes with discipline.
Yeah,
though.
like you need to combat it with discipline, and you need to do things that prove to yourself that you can basically overcome those situations where it leads to worse things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've also had a few situations where like I did something and I was like, was that really the right thing to do? And it makes me think, okay, well, the next time I'm going to make sure for sure. It was like more of I'm acting in a certain way, or I say something or whatever. And
you got angry when you shouldn't have.
Yeah. Or it's like acting or asking myself, what was right in this situation instead of what I wanted to do. It's like that short-term gratification rather than like the long-term success of it.
Honestly, a lot of that is just thinking before you act.
Yeah. Taking that extra second to really take in what's going on rather than basically reacting off of emotion. Cause I think that's a really big thing when it comes to making decisions that overwhelm you or lead to worse outcomes than you expect them to.
Yeah. All right. You want to hear something crazy?
Of course.
Scientists have made a quantum leap in. Can you guess what the topic is?
Quantum leap in.
Like, meaning they made a huge, huge, huge breakthrough in this aspect of science. You're probably not going to guess, to be honest, but I still want to hear what you think it would be. What have scientists moved extremely forward with recently?
Cloning.
Honestly, that's kind of in the same realm. But no, teleportation.
How is
so this? Using hybrid entanglement of photons. Well, all right, let me read this first because this explains what a qubit is, and you need to know what that is. So in teleportation, the state of a quantum particle, or a qubit, so a qubit is a quantum particle, is transferred from one location to another without sending the particle itself. So they send the state of the qubit to another qubit that mimics it identically without actually sending that qubit physically.
Okay.
So what this would mean for in a human aspect is you'd be killed and reborn into a new body with the exact same conscious and everything. So it wouldn't be your physical form teleporting. It'd be everything else teleporting into an identical version of yourself. So using hybrid entanglement of photons, they have demonstrated near perfect quantum state transfers by combining polarization and frequency. The teams at Fermilab, Caltech, and other top institutions teleported qubits over 27 miles using fiber optic networks, showcasing the potential for a quantum internet. This innovative approach even turns quantum noise into a beneficial factor, enhancing the teleportation process. There was a lot more in this article that I read, but to be honest, it was really fucking hard to understand because it was like a fucking like a professor fucking released an article on this, and I was reading that. But yeah, as of now, I think it's only like they couldn't teleport a physical object yet, but it's like instant transfer of data with 0 millisecond transfer of data.
So his teleportation even in movies and stuff like that always been the idea of the kind of like alchemy, like the deconstruction of one thing into the creation of another.
Yeah,
Like,
kind of.
has that always been like what teleportation has been? It's like the idea of taking one thing, breaking it down, and just shooting it somewhere else and then recreating it.
Yeah, I think so.
That's interesting because I actually had a thought the other day of like how teleportation or even like super speed, if it was a real thing,
How you'd run that fast without being torn to shreds?
that or is it, are you just slowing down time? Is super speed being super fast or is it
You
you're
slow
slowing
down time enough and
time?
running at a regular speed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because like I feel like I've always watched like The Flash or people that move fast, and they're technically in the movies. It looks like they're just slowing down time and moving in a normal speed rather than actually being super fast, or just like how it wouldn't make sense. Because obviously this is more of a super. Okay, we're talking. I would assume we're more talking like we're gonna build this machine that's like a COD teleporter thing, right? And it's like a nether portal, like it shoots and you like walk into it and it deconstructs you and shoots you to another teleport thing and it reconstructs you.
Yeah.
We're not talking about like the superhero aspect where I'm like Japan, it's like poof, and then you whatever, you just teleport to Japan or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It would be like, yeah, an actual system like that.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I think about all this, like the idea of teleportation and stuff, it's so interesting because you know at some point they're going to have to use a human to try and deconstruct and reconstruct.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't sound, obviously it doesn't sound possible. A lot of these things that they create don't sound possible initially. But having to
But 100 years ago,
deconstruct,
planes didn't sound possible.
yeah,
Or, well,
exactly. That's
120
what
years ago.
that's my idea is like everything doesn't sound possible right
Until it's
away.
done.
Yeah, but it also, you have to think about how many people are going to have to, okay, well, might not make it here, right? You're not going to get reconstructed. You're just going to get vaporized. Or like what happens? I'm curious on what happens in between. They jump in and then they're gone. Like it doesn't come out on the other side.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen to them too. But that's a risk we're gonna have to take. Like, and first, obviously, they'd probably be doing it with like rats, like lab rats, and they'd have to have 15,000 successful transfers of fucking lab rats and other animals before they try it with a human. But the casualties behind it, I think that's going to be a cost that will have to be paid if we are to reach this point and able to teleport. Because, I mean, people die in plane crashes, people die in car crashes. It happens. It's going to have to happen.
I'm just curious. I'm like, okay, what is the real benefit? Like, what do you think the real benefit would be from the creation of teleportation?
I mean, if they honed into it enough and figured, like, really got it down pat, you could go from fucking Chicago to London in under 10 seconds. There would be no need for automobiles, no need for planes, no need for any type of locomotive, no need for trains or anything, because you could just step into a pod and teleport to where you need to go to.
Yeah.
But at the same, okay, no, I know I'm wrong there because you're probably only going to have these pods in set locations, so you would still need transportation after that. But like something that would take 26 hours flying with a layover could take you 15 seconds now.
I don't know. I feel like in this capitalistic society, they wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars to teleport.
I mean, obviously, there would be who knows how available this type of technology would be, but yeah, that would literally get rid of. I would say mostly plane travel.
Planes. Yeah.
Yeah, literally all the jobs that keep up planes, airports, and stuff. Unless they're like, okay, we're gonna get rid of planes, and they're just gonna be like these server places. Like the airports are gonna turn in like these what are they called? They're like in a video game where
terminals.
you jump in Well, no, you jump in, and then like all around you is just like a bunch of teleporters, and it takes you to like different places. A hub,
A hub, yeah, yeah.
I guess. A hub. You could say it's a hub for planes too. So I guess it's a hub. You just have a hub, a bunch of these teleportation places, but it wouldn't be free. There's no way it would be free unless you decide to like, I'm gonna. This is
Build my own.
commercialized, and you can buy it and put it in your backyard.
That would be
But
kind of
then,
great.
yeah, you think of like all the intricate things that would actually have to happen. Like if there needs to be a connection from one teleporter to another teleporter, you would have
Yeah,
to
just
get
like
the
phones used to be.
specific. Yeah, you need that exact like okay IP address of this person's teleporter, put it into your teleporter, and then you're able to teleport back and forth from that spot. But how would you be able to teleport from multiple different places? Like would you have to change that IP address each time, or do you need multiple teleporters to go to different places? I feel like once you think about all the
Yeah,
possibilities,
it's a real
it's
think
so
piece
like
because there's
unfathomable to make even real at all. Like, because for example, in that article or whatever that you read about that, how did they realize that specific molecule or whatever they sent from the 27 miles? How did they know it was the same thing?
because they didn't actually transfer the thing that they transferred itself. They transferred the state of it to another teleporter where it recreated the state. So I think the physical being of it was still in the same place. I don't know if it gets
How
destroyed
is
or
it?
not.
That's what I'm like. Literally would need to break you down and build you back up somehow. Because how is it just gonna like?
So
Oh,
this was the stuff that I started reading about, and I was like, okay, it's 1 a.m. I can't understand this right now. I'm not thinking hard enough. But yeah, I don't know. Because there are a lot of fucking variables that you'd have to figure out. Because it says they use fiber optic cables too, which means that it has to be connected. It's not just like, hey, we're gonna send this from here to here with no path.
even if it was connected in some way, it would take however long to connect teleporters from
This
one
place to that
the
place.
next place.
Well, we do have the undersea fiber optic cables all across the ocean, though, and they'd probably use something like that.
Yeah, I guess they could probably just utilize that, but
Yeah, fuck DDoSing someone. I'm gonna send myself into your router.
yeah, you're just gonna come through. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Once you have their IP address, you can just teleport into their house if they have a hub or something.
Yeah. Open Wireshark, find their fucking IP address, and dox them.
Yeah, and then you just think of like the issues. Like, okay, let's say they do get through. Okay, we can teleport one thing to the next thing, but what are the What are the side effects of it? Maybe part of you doesn't fully get transmitted to the other side.
And if you do it 100 times,
Yeah,
there's nothing left of the original person.
who knows if it's like there's a radiation aspect to it or what that. I don't know. It's just so.
God, imagine teleporting to someone's house, calling in a bomb threat from their house, and then teleporting away to swat them.
That would lead into a whole new like cybersecurity job.
Make sure your teleporter's locked when you leave the house.
Yeah, make sure IP is encrypted. Damn, dude, that would be something fucking.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
a lot. That's a lot to think about.
Wow. I'm trying to think of something else that we've seen in movies or TV shows and stuff that seems like it's impossible, but at some time could be real. I don't think flying cars will ever be a thing.
They're already working on them. Like there's a company that released a prototype that would be available.
But you
in a couple
you
years.
have to implement an entire aerial police system.
Yeah.
And roadways and stuff. Like there would be so much danger and irregulation when it comes to people just trying to fly flying cars around once it initially comes out, that they would have to be so highly regulated, and it's going to be like EVs and like electric vehicles where they're going to be so expensive to begin with that the normal person isn't going to be able to use it, that it's not going to be profitable enough to even consider building a highway in the air police.
But would you really need a highway?
No, I'm
Like,
just saying,
obviously, yeah, there should be restrictions and there needs to be safety regulations and shit, but yeah. Yeah, so what would the infrastructure for that look like? Because you're not going to need roadways.
mm-hmm.
Would it just be like fucking flying fences and stay between these?
Yeah, because like I guess you would. I don't know. I don't know if you would need red lights or whatever. Because you would only need a direction. You wouldn't like you said. You don't need
Yeah, you
roads. You
you
just need
go
to
up and you start
just go
flying
west.
southeast.
Yeah, whatever it is, and that's all you need technically. So, but there has to be the satellites and the radars on those things would have to be so complex to be able to recognize cars from
It would almost have to like
every.
be autopilot.
Yeah, and
But
then
I
like
also I feel like there's a lot more aspects that could be dangerous, but at the same time, not everyone's going to be on the same y-axis either. Like, whereas if you're on the ground driving a car, everyone's on the same plane, everyone's on the same level.
that's the thing. I think that's what would have to come to like the safety regulations. Everyone has to fly below a specific height, above a specific height to not hit any satellites or hit any houses. But you have to go low enough so that you don't hit planes or you don't interfere with any planes. But then again, that
But
goes
yeah,
into like the capitalism thing where it takes away from other sources of transportation. And I mean, if you think about gas tanks, right? That if you're gonna have a plane that's flying, I guarantee, or a car that's flying, do you think it would? Don't you think it would take more gas than it would if it was just driving?
that I would have to say no. Yeah, well, I feel like it would kind of equal out because while yes, you may use a little more fuel being in the air, you also waste a significant amount of fuel just like sitting in traffic every day with your car idle, which you will not have to do in the air.
I'm just thinking like, okay, let's say you're at your house and you go up and you fly away and you run out of gas and you have
You
to.
just fucking crash.
Well, that yes, I'm saying. Let's say there's no sky police. Obviously, they probably would implement some sort of sky police, but you could literally, if you have a flying car and a car pulls, like a cop pulls you off normally, pulls you over normally, you could just
Fly away.
and fly away, right? So all cop cars would have to kind of implement a flying car system. Then all cops would have to be trained in flying, like a flying car license.
Yeah, but it's not like you could just like you'd have to get him back down to the ground before you could pull him over. It's not like a cop can just step out of the car and fucking walk on an air bridge and
Well, so no, I'm more
license and
saying like
registration.
let's just say like this guy is driving normally, but they have a flying car,
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh, I got pulled over. Okay,
I'm gonna fly away. But yeah,
launch."
say this cop chases him into the air because the cops have flying cars too. How does he pull the person over? There's
It's
no
probably gonna
fucking
be
pulling
like
him
a.
over. There's no pit
I mean,
maneuvers.
yeah, of course. At that, I feel like at that aspect, um, they would probably shoot like some EMP at you.
But
But
then
then
you
again,
die
that would
100%
crash.
of the
Yeah,
time.
you would crash or something. So the risks, I don't know, dude. It just doesn't like, and that's another thing that doesn't seem very plausible.
Yeah, that's probably why it
Transportation.
hasn't been done yet. Because in the 1920s, people were thinking that there was going to be flying cars by 2020, but it's so impractical. It probably could have been done by now, but it is so impractical that it just hasn't.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what the next like. I do wonder what the next like. Holy shit! Didn't think that was possible type of thing would happen or will happen.
Yeah. Could be flying cars. You never know.
Could be flying motorcycles, flying. I guess we have drones already. People riding on drones.
I got one. Flying planes. That would be crazy.
Dude, planes would be sweet. You could
Yeah.
like go from one place to the next like in like 4 hours. Like you'll here to like California in like 4 hours.
Yeah. You can leave the United States of America not by boat.
Wait, you can do that?
Yeah. If we had planes, you could. Oh. What else do we want to talk about?
Well, I read this kind of sad article, but it was about the whole article was about this lady how she pretty much watched her parents go through stages of Alzheimer's,
Mm.
and pretty much in the article there was a really interesting question that one it was pretty sad, but I thought it would be pretty thought provoking.
Yeah.
It was if memory is a way to combat loss, what happens when we cannot hold onto our memories?
Yeah, that is kind of. I mean, your body still holds your emotion centers though, and like, there's studies that have been done with like people that have Alzheimer's and shit like that, dementia, and you can like go to them and be like, "Hey, your wife's dead," and it'll make them sad, and then an hour later, they won't remember you telling them that their wife's dead, but they will still feel sad and they don't know why. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because your body still holds those emotions even if you don't remember.
Mm-hmm. It was just pretty crazy because like, and it was the I think the article was literally called "Shifting Baselines," and shifting baselines is the idea that each successive generation will accept as normal an increasingly degraded and disorganized ecology until at some point in the future no one will remember what a healthy ecology looks like and feels like.
Yeah, I think that's very possible.
So it's like obviously as time goes by, people just
Forget.
feel grieve and forget things, but they just assume that it's normal so that once things happen like that, they just kind of, oh, just another thing that happened. Not that big of a deal. Just another family member gone.
Yeah. You become numb to it almost once you've you become numb to it and you forget a lot easier is what happens.
Mm-hmm. And that I guess is very correlated with the idea of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah. But well, you may forget about it, but you may not ever stop feeling it. That's the thing.
Yeah, so your body remembers, but
Like they also say people with like severe depression that go through their day by day lives fucking just trying to survive over actually living. Uh your body struggles to create new memories when you're in those, like when you're severely depressed, so you may still be depressed about the things that happened to you and whatever happened, but you won't necessarily remember it because it's your body's way of like protecting you.
yeah, it's like trauma, I
Yeah.
guess. Huh. Makes me wonder what I've forgotten because of some traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like I have a pretty good memory.
I have a good memory when things are brought up. Like if you can hit that spot in my brain, I'll remember everything.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, this is completely unrelated to like dementia and Alzheimer's, but someone asked me this morning. They're like, "How many drinks do you think you remember?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. It all depends on who walks in the door." Because like I look at everyone in there at the moment. I'm like, okay, I know everyone's drink here, but until that person walks in, and I remember them and remember that they're actually a real person. I'll be like, oh, this correlates with that, and this is what they get, and it could probably be like 50 to 100 people that I remember what exactly they get because your mind just remembers things.
Yeah, I probably have 200 to 300 remembered at least. But I have more drinks remembered. Like I have more customer drinks memorized than names. There's some customers that come in that I've known them for too long and I'm scared to ask them their name now, but I know what drink they get.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was this guy, his name's like Ephraim. Didn't know his name. He either got a tall, hotter iced white mocha, no whip, every single time he comes in. And I knew that for like probably close to a year before I knew his name.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I have that situation too. Sometimes it kind of comes up with like, I don't know if it's like a little bit of a social anxiety or it's just like that scaredness of getting something wrong. Like, for example, I feel like I know people's names sometimes, but I like when they come in, I'm like, do I say their name or do I just say like hello? And usually I'm just like, I just say hello because I don't want to get their name wrong instead
Yeah.
of going up to them and being like, hey man, I'm sorry. What is your name again? And I think that's the idea of that's like the fear thing. Because there's a lot of
Usually,
people at the gym too that I see and I'm like, I think I know what their name is, but I'm
I'm not
too
going to.
scared to ask them what, or too scared to call them by it because it could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, at least at work for me, when that happens, I usually just make someone else take their order. I say, like, hey, take this order and make sure you get a name for me.
Okay, I mean, yes, I think, I mean, that's definitely a good way to do it. I just feel like I put a lot of guilt on myself when I'm like, okay, well, I should probably just do this and ask them like what their name is. But I also feel like a lot of the situations I have, it's people, like I said, at the gym or in public or something where I'm like, I should probably say their name. But, and I mean, there's another, what did I read, dude? Oh, it was actually like a pretty much an article about how to be charismatic, how to top like 9 things on charisma. And I didn't get
Mm.
through the whole thing, but it was pretty much um, call people by their name. Like the first 2 things were greet everybody in a room and call everyone by their name if you know it.
Yeah.
And you would be seen as like a very charismatic person. And that's something that I wanted to try myself, like test myself to do is to call everyone by their name. For some reason, saying their name is very scary to me. Like there's a whole bunch of people, like I said, at the gym that call me by my name and I know their name, but it's just a reaction to say like, what's up, bro? What's up, dude? What's up, man?
Yeah. Fun fact, did you know the word Riz comes from charisma?
Yes, I did know that actually. I don't know where I read that from, but I remember reading that.
So
Dude, I was
you're learning about Riz? That's
yeah,
what you're saying?
learning about Riz, but I don't know. I feel like I feel like in that way, Riz has like 2 different definitions.
Yeah,
Because Riz is seen
100%.
as like you're trying to make a move on someone
Yeah.
or get a relationship, but charisma is trying to just be
It's the whole broad spectrum of that.
yeah.
Where it's not necessarily a relationship or fucking sex related.
Mm-hmm. I've been really trying to do one thing a day that makes me feel rejected. And it's funny, the other day I did something not even thinking about it. I wanted to get Subway for dinner. I think this was just Sunday. I
Mhm.
wanted to get Subway and it was 7:27 and I pulled up to the store and it said that they closed at 8. And I walked in and he's like, "We're closed." I was like, "Closed?" I was like, "The door says 8." He's like, "No, yeah, we're closed." I was like, "Okay, have a great night." And I felt so rejected by going into Subway and him telling me that it was closed, that it was kind of like, I obviously didn't go out of my way to do this, but it kind of
It
gave me
had,
an idea of like, oh, going 5 minutes before they close and trying to get food. Because I feel like that's the worst. I would literally never do
yeah,
that
you're a
ever.
terrible fucking person. I like anyone that's listening. You are a terrible fucking person if you walk into a restaurant and order 5 minutes before close. Especially like it wasn't that bad, but last night I had a girl come in and fucking. She came in 2 minutes before close. It was like 9:58, and I had already shut down all the cash. And they told me, the 2 people that were with me told me that a girl just came in, and I walked out and saw she had $10 in cash in her hand. And before she said a word, I'm like, hey, just letting you know I have no cash in any of my tills right now. We close in 2 minutes. But she had her card on Apple Pay, so she only got a gift card, so it wasn't as bad. But
Oh, okay.
I was so angry when I saw her walk in with cash in her hand at 9:58 or 8:58.
Those are those situations that really test you, and you have to be like, okay, it's 2 minutes. We're technically not closed. Fine, I'll do it.
Yeah,
But I remember when I used to work at Mod, people would come in 5 minutes before
and
close,
expect a fucking pizza.
yeah, multiple pizzas too.
I'd tell them no.
Yeah,
Like, I think at a place like that, you need to fucking stop fulfilling orders half an hour before actual close, just so that you have time to catch up on the orders that you have, or like 20 minutes, 15 minutes before close. The amount of time it would take to make a pizza.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. I also don't like the idea of rejecting someone like that. I'd rather be rejected than reject others.
That's the side of it. That's the other side of it, though. You gotta.
People
Sometimes you
please.
do have to learn how to say no.
True. I definitely do that a lot with like if people try and give me like $100 bill at work. It's like,
Yeah,
nah,
go fuck
dude.
yourself.
For your small pike because you want change for it. I'm like, dude, come on.
I couldn't tell you how many times I've had a fucking 9-person family walk in at 8:55 and try to pay with $100 bill, and then they have to cancel the order because they don't have anything but cash. That's happened to me like probably at least 4 times.
It's a different feeling when someone tries to walk in and freaking order a whole 10 drink order right before close, and you're like, come on, like, and they don't care about it, which is interesting. I think it's the other side too, is the people that do it and it doesn't bother them.
Yeah.
They're more like, they're open. This is going to benefit me rather than
burden them.
Yeah, burden them, which is actually interesting because it goes into because my ethics of data class, it goes into a bunch of different ethical theories, and the theory, I think it's called act utilitarianism. It's the idea of how much one action provides either happiness or like benefits over consequences, pretty much. So how you look at it in these different situations, it's like, okay, what is the benefit to this situation, and do they outweigh the harms of the situation? And that's how you tell if it's ethical or not.
Yeah.
And if you look at a situation like that, it's like, okay, well, we know they're about to close, so the benefit to this is that we get our stuff, we get what we want, and that's it. You pretty much just get what you want. And the cons would be that they have to work past close, that the workers would have to work past close. They would have to, for example, let's say they only had cash and you just had to accept it. It's like you had to do some extra work because they only had cash. And then on top of that, you put a burden on them because of it's only a few people working. So it's like, in that point, the cons would overweigh the benefits, which would make it in a way unethical. Obviously, ethics is a little bit more in depth. Like, we're more talking about like hacking into people's like networks and cybersecurity and like swatting people and DDoSing people. Like, all those are unethical, but
Yeah.
you can take a lot of these ethical theories and put them into real life, and basically decide on if they're ethical or not. And it's crazy that a lot of this stuff really does correlate to real life, because it makes you like, there's another one called virtue ethics, and it's pretty much like, let's say you want to be an honest person and you're looking at a situation and like, okay, I want to be this honest person, but I just lied to them. I just told them a lie to be able to get past this, or I was untrustworthy to them because I told them I was going to do something and I ended up doing it, which would make that person unethical and dishonest, which would make that whole thing unethical to begin with, because you're not portraying yourself as that honest person.
Yeah.
It's actually it's so weird thinking about all these ethical theories and how they actually go into different aspects of life, not just data.
Not just ethics and data. Yeah. Another, I actually found this one today. I didn't even put it into my notes, but I bookmarked it so that we could talk about it. And I'm almost 100% positive, brought one of these up before. But you know what a razor is, right? Not a shaving razor, like
a scooter?
No, like Occam's razor. Like it's a rule of thumb that simplifies decision making. And this list was 16 razors everyone should know. Occam's razor is probably the most common razor that is talked about, and that's the first one on the list. Occam's razor is the easiest answer is often the right answer. Don't complicate your thinking when you don't need to. You hear a meowing sound under the sofa, it's probably the cat, not a hidden speaker playing cat sounds. So it's Occam's razor is just the simplest answer is usually the right answer. And then this one, I don't know if you said it on the podcast, but I know 100% I've heard this from you. It's called Hanlon's razor. Don't attribute to malice what you can attribute to stupidity. I'm almost 100% positive I've heard you say that before.
I don't know. Doesn't really. I honestly doesn't really recall to me. It might have been said something similar, but I don't think those exact words. I don't think I've ever.
In one of our like last month and a half worth of podcasts, I'm pretty sure you said that.
Don't attribute to malice
what you can attribute to stupidity.
So it's saying like if there's stupidity, try to just not.
Like they're not doing it to be a bad person. They're doing it because they're stupid.
Okay.
If your little brother colors on your homework, it's probably not because he hates you. It's more likely he didn't know how important your homework was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's a good one.
Yeah. It's like your dog pissing on your gym bag or something.
Yeah. He didn't do it out of spite. He did it because he wanted to put his scent on it.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one.
We got Sagan's razor. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So the weight of proof rests with the person making a claim, and the more unusual the assertion, the more substantial the evidence needed. You should ask for solid proof. If someone says they saw a unicorn, you need a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
You need them to bring you to see it in real life.
I like that one a lot because there's a lot of stuff that is spewed, and I'm a very logical person, I think, as you would assume.
Yeah.
And when I hear something that's kind of questionable, or definitely I feel I have some skepticism towards, I need someone to prove to me that's true. Even in like the basic aspect, it's like, oh yeah, I just shot 86 in golf. It's like,
okay, well, do it again.
Where's your scorecard?
Yeah.
Oh, I threw it out. I was like, okay, dude, I don't believe you. like even to the basic amount. But especially when it comes to psychology or science or lifting and stuff like that, I really need some sort of proof that specific thing is trustworthy, because if you believe everything, you're gullible, and that's exactly the idea.
And that's what most of our country is.
Mm-hmm.
They hear things and they believe it. They don't need that significant evidence to back up outrageous claims.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. I think we've talked about this before. I've talked about this before. Yep. Setting tighter deadlines gets tasks done more quickly and efficiently. If you have 1 day, I've said this exactly, actually. If you have 1 day to clean your room, it will take 1 day. You'll probably get it done in 1 hour if you have 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another good one to think about.
Definitely.
If you give
go ahead.
If you give yourself a set amount of time to do something, you're going to do it in that amount of time, no matter how long or short it is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still definitely doing that, but on something on top of that is, especially with the podcast, this more is correlated to the podcast that we record in person, because obviously when we do it online, it's much easier to edit and fix up and stuff.
Yeah.
But since we moved the podcast from Sundays to Wednesdays, and we record on Thursdays, it's giving me that like extra 2 days to do, or 3 days to do. Mm-hmm. Or 2 days actually, because I have to post it on Wednesday. But usually I don't edit it until Tuesday because I have to post it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Whereas
you were editing it on Friday and Saturday.
Yes, I was giving myself those 2 days because I needed to post it right away. But what I wanted to go into is like, instead of doing it all at once, doing like 20 minutes of editing per day up until the day that I have to post it, so that I don't have to take 2.5 hours, 3 hours to edit it all at once in 1 day, pretty much shortening the workload over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like those are both good ways. Either like just give yourself a short period of time to do something, or give yourself that, let's say it's something's due in a month, give yourself that month to work on it
instead of a day,
instead of just a day, because I do think that will lessen the anxiety of it, and it will make your work a little bit better because it's more in depth over time rather than just all at once.
Yeah. It wasn't procrastination work. It was well thought out. And,
yeah.
Oh, fuck. The next one is Hofstadter's law. In contradiction to Parkinson's law, this one says things usually take longer than we think. If you think you'll finish your homework in an hour, it might actually take 2 hours. Often, the last 10% of a task takes as much time as the first 90% did. That's another one that you brought up. We were talking about
yeah.
I think that was last week we were talking about it
Yeah, it was
actually.
the best thing about being at 90% is because
You're
the last
halfway there.
10%, yeah, is you're halfway there. Exactly.
Yeah. And I also yes, I do believe in Parkinson's law, but I also believe in this law with shit like I think I can clean my room in an hour, but in reality, if I really want to clean it well, it usually takes me 2 to 3. But I always say, oh, it's going to take me an hour just to put myself in that mindset that I'm only using an hour of my time to do this. When in reality, I know it may take longer than I think it will.
Mm-hmm. I find this a lot with like homework, especially if it's like a numbered problem, like let's say it's 1 through 10.
Yeah, you can keep going.
Let's say it's 1 through 10, and obviously, I feel like even with tests and stuff, starting at 1, it just gets harder over time.
Yeah.
So the amount of thought that has to go into, and obviously, there's not a direct correlation. Like, it's not always that it gets harder over time, but a good amount of the time, once you get to that 10th question, it's going to be a lot more difficult than it was going like at the beginning. So giving yourself that allotted time to work on things for longer than you think is also good, because if you think something is going to take an hour, you should probably take 2 hours to try and get
it done as good as possible.
Yeah, because I feel like if I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, especially homework, I have an hour to do this and I need to get it done. I rush it so much. I feel like it's never my best work because I feel like I have some sort of timeline or timer that I have on myself that I need to get it done within a certain period of time, instead of like, I think that also correlates with like Parkinson's law too. It's like, I feel like if I know that something is due in 2 weeks, but I'm working on it now, it gives me a relief that I'm also getting it done, but it gives me that less anxiety filled workflow, knowing that it's not going to
be due
kill
tomorrow.
me if I don't. Yeah. That it's not going to kill me that it's not done yet.
Yeah. The next one is the anchoring bias. The first thing you learn or see, the anchor, influences what you think next, which is like the example they gave is, you know how you'll go places and they'll have like the jars that say, guess the amount of candy in the jar and you win the jar, or you win this much money or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you see is the anchor, and that influences what you think. So say you walk up to that jar, it has 100 candies in it. The person before you guessed 25. You know it's more than 25, so you're going to guess 30 because they guessed 25.
Yeah, I was also going to say, like, let's say you go into one store and the price for a product is $50, and then you're like, and you go into the next store and that price for that product is $30, and you're like, oh, it's cheap.
So you buy it then. Yeah.
So you buy it then, even though its normal value would probably be only $30. But because it's kind of like, I think how people do sales, I think they actually do that on purpose, is to put certain products more in like larger font with like bigger prices, so that when you go down in different areas, you see, oh, this price is dropped by this much. It was so much cheaper than the other one. I'm just going to buy that instead.
People would see the expensive shit and fucking be like, no. And they get the cheaper shit over buying nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with, I feel like it's really American centered, but a lot of Americans, if you dangle a high price in front of them and then dangle a sale price in front of them, they will almost 100% of the time bite on the sale price, because Americans love consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And consumerism is rampant in this country.
I have a quote in my head about that exact thing. I don't remember it, but it was just like, and simply, it's just because it's on sale doesn't mean you should purchase it, because, or no, that's what it is. It's just because if something is $200 normally and it's on sale for $50, you're not saving $150. You're losing 50. You're still losing that $50, even though it's on sale for $150, because you're still spending something.
Yeah. Yeah, but most people don't think like that.
Mm-hmm. Unless it's like, I think very basic stuff, it's good, because it's like toothpaste or like some sort of food that's on sale. That stuff is usually good, but when it's like the stuff, it's obviously the needs. It's good to buy stuff on sale, but like
the wants, not. Yeah. The next one is the Pareto principle, which is 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts. For example, you'll get 80% of your kid's room clean just by picking up the toys, because that's the biggest part of the mess. So 20% of your efforts went towards cleaning the toys, and because the toys were the biggest part of the mess, you're 80% done now. That one's a little harder to comprehend, I feel like.
I feel like I've seen something correlated to that. It's 80% of the work will be done in 20% of the. Wait, what was it again?
80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts.
I feel like that also can relate to that last 20% of your efforts, like not just only 20%, but like that last, or the, like, let's say that 20% that it comes from your results is that super focused,
final,
super focused, like high demand effort rather than just like the very basic. Because like if you think about it in like a project standpoint, 80% of your attention and blah 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 could have been towards writing the outline, communicating with your team, simply showing up. But that 20% is your full-on focused productive work that you've done, and you're going to get more work in the 20% of that full-on focused work than you would in the 80% of just simply communicating with your team. And
because just like the fucking
travel and stuff,
the good part about being 90% done is you're halfway there. It's kind of the same concept as that. Is that last 20% of effort that you're putting in is going to be 80% of the project, because
exactly,
that's the most important part.
Yeah, at the end, it's always going to be the most difficult, like, because that at that point, let's say you're thinking of like a customer facing application or something, you're going to need to put more work in at the end than you would at the beginning, because this is end game. That 20% is usually the end game work that you're putting in. Obviously, that's not really correlated to cleaning your kid's room, but
it's the same
like
concept.
Yeah. Whoa!
I accidentally opened the video. All right, the next one is the Eisenhower matrix. Dwight Eisenhower was the definition of productive and once said, "I have two kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent." Stephen Covey repackaged it as the Eisenhower matrix. So you have your important and urgent items. You do those. You have clear deadlines and consequences if you don't complete these. You have your urgent and not important items. You delegate those. These need to be done, but they don't need you to do them. You have your important and not urgent. Those you have to decide on whether or not you should do them. These bring you closer to your goal, but they have no clear deadline and are often ignored or deferred. And then not urgent and not important, delete. These don't need to be done by you or anyone else. And every task that you have could fit into one of those four categories.
Mm-hmm. I actually have an app that I want to use more. It's called TickTick, and it has an implemented Eisenhower matrix where you can put your task into those four categories.
You know what the Eisenhower matrix is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's definitely really good because you can see what's worth your time. It goes back to that question, is what do you think is productive but really isn't? And all those ones in the like not urgent, not important are all those productive things that aren't productive. They're those productive things that you think are productive but aren't productive because they're not getting you in any way or shape or form towards your goal. And that's important to recognize what is important, what needs to get done. And there's something similar to that. And it was, I don't remember, there's no like name for it, but it was pretty much like whatever you're going into each and every day, right? One big task, 3 medium tasks, and 5 small tasks that you need to get done in that day. Now you could take it a step further, write those, 8 tasks or 9 tasks down, and then put them in the Eisenhower matrix and see if they're worth your time to go through and actually fulfill. But I also think that just simply helps you narrow down what needs to get done and what doesn't need to get done.
Yeah. The next one is, there's still quite a few. Gall's law: a complex system that works is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. Great things start simple, like learning to crawl before you walk and then run. So every complex system is created off of simpler systems that worked previously.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the idea of it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also has diminishing returns as things get more complicated. It gets more difficult to keep up with.
Yeah.
And if you have a simple system that works for you, what's the point of really complexifying? Is that a word?
I think so.
Making it more complex for what? Like that, it's just kind of like you have to.
I've really felt that heavy at the last few days at work or the last week at work because everything's fucking moving every day. Every single day, something's in a different spot. And it's like, why are we breaking the system we have? It's not broken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like we're noticing, I don't know. It's not even like we're noticing issues that were there before because we didn't notice. Like everything seemed okay before. In a way, it started from that simple system of what we had, moving into a more complex system that doesn't have as much return as the simple system we previously had.
Yeah, my favorite is the salt packets under the syrups that 90% of the salts have to be thrown away because they're fucking covered in syrup.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about how this also correlates to maybe like an editing aspect where, well, honestly, this is kind of back and like this, I kind of went in the opposite direction. So when I first editing the podcast,
you were doing a lot more than you needed to.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you figured out all the.
I think, I think some things go backwards. Some things start off really complex and they realize that they need a solution.
To be fixed.
They need a solution to make things simpler. And for example, like to give you guys some context, when I edited the podcast before, I used Final Cut Pro. I loaded all of the 4 files. It was the 2 video files and the 2 audio files in. And every time I would talk, my video would be live, and you can like hit V and it would pretty much disable my audio and disable my video, or more just my video. And every time Tommy would talk, I would disable my video, and there would literally be like 300 cuts in a 2-hour podcast, right? But then I found out this was already an implemented system in Final Cut. It's called a multicam clip.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1
Yep.
2, 1,
And
2.
now all I do when someone's talking and switches, I just hit 1 and 2 and it goes through the entire thing. There's just as many cuts, but there's so much different.
Well, it's less work. Significantly less work.
Yes, a lot less work. It's so much simple. And I think, like I said, there is things that need to be, that start off really complex, and they build it to be more simple because it just takes up so much less time.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know how long it would take me. It would probably take me 4 hours to edit a 2-hour podcast back then. But now it technically would take me like around 2.5 to edit a 2-hour podcast because of the simplicity of the program.
Even shorter if you watch it in 1.5 or 2 times.
Yes, I actually do always edit it in 1.5.
The next one is it's either Dunning or Dunning. Dunning sounds better. Dunning-Kruger effect. Unskilled individuals overestimate their ability and experts underestimate their ability. When you first learn something, you may think you're an expert, even though you're not. Like all of the people online who become experts on every topic of the day.
I feel like that's a personality thing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that are humble and realize that they are bad at something, but then there are people that believe that they need to have an ego in whatever they learn to be able to be seen as intelligent. It's kind of like, don't be smart, don't try to be smart, try to be what was it was the quote from last week. It was like, don't try to be smart, be humble and be willing to learn, something like that, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's like people are always trying to be smart rather than be right and be informed, be curious. They just want to be right, even though they barely know about a topic. And that's kind of like, I don't want to talk about certain things if I'm not too
no expertise
out of it. Yeah. And that's why I mean, realistically, that was one of the reasons why we switched I felt like we should switch the format of the podcast, because we were never, that was kind of that's exactly what that.
We were just talking about things that we did a little bit of research on during the week instead of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it you can definitely see that we didn't know lots of things about it, but we had good intentions, I should say.
Yeah. And next we have the halo effect. When you like one thing about someone, you start to think everything about them is good. This one can be a challenge for people who become very good in one area of life and automatically think they're great in other areas. Those didn't coincide.
Say it again.
So it says, when you like one thing about someone, you start to think everything about them is good. But then the explanation is this one can become a challenge for people who become very good in one area of life and automatically think they're great in other areas. But those two sentences
Yeah, that
don't
means
correlate.
you're talking about yourself rather
Yeah,
than
not
somebody
others.
else.
All right, we're going to skip that one. Hawthorne effect. When people know they're being watched, they work harder, like cleaning your room faster when your mom is watching. When you want to perform at your best, set up a friend to work side by side with you to keep you accountable. I think that is 100% true. I work harder in the gym when people are watching me. I work harder at work if like fucking managers there. That is 100% true.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. I don't know if it's more working harder. I feel like it's more working the way you,
Smarter.
not smart.
The
I would
way
say
you the
to
way you should,
standard.
yeah. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
true.
because I looked at myself today. Our manager opened with us, and I'm like, did I get anything more done than I would if she wasn't here? And I'm pretty sure I got either the same amount or maybe even less, or just probably. I would think it was probably the same amount. So I think it really depends on what your task is. But I don't know. I think sometimes I work less or work worse when people are watching over me because you
Because you're
feel like
anxious.
you feel like you're going to do something wrong and then they either comment on it or whatever, or like you feel like they're going to say something that you didn't know and then complain about it or this or that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting one for sure, but it definitely does correlate with a lot of things.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like you should look at that too. That obviously, if you don't work as hard as when somebody else is watching you, I do think keeping accountability, like for example, like that one said, you work with a friend to keep each other accountable. I think that's a good aspect to it because that doesn't necessarily bring anxiety to you.
That's what I think about with like the gym is like if someone's there to hold me accountable, I'm not going to cheat myself out of like reps.
Yeah,
Or I'm going
it,
to put that extra 5 pounds on.
I think it also correlates to the idea that someone is relying on you, and you usually work better when you're working towards a bigger purpose than yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm that's for example with this class, a lot of my work is correlated with our grade is part of everyone's
Everyone.
accumulative work,
Yeah.
and I need to make sure my stuff is done or everyone's going to suffer. So I
Between
think
just your
that's
team, right?
yes, just
Yeah.
our
Okay.
team.
Like your
But
5 people or
still, like I
whatever.
think that's also a really good mindset to have is working towards a purpose or whatever that has a greater purpose than yourself, so that you know you're working towards helping somebody else or working towards a bigger goal.
Yeah. All right. The next one we've got is Sayer's Law. This one is very true and it resonates with our country. People often argue the most about things that matter the least. I don't really think we need to go in depth on that one, but it is very true.
Mm-hmm.
Next is they keep changing fucking names. It went from razors to laws to principles, and now this one is Chesterton's fence.
Interesting.
Don't change something until you understand why it's there. Don't take down a fence in your yard until you learn what it's keeping out. Okay, that's why it's called the fence because
Yeah.
he said
Okay.
that.
It's not like a word for a theory or whatever.
Yeah,
It's just the little
the literal
figuratively, I guess.
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say it one more time.
Don't change something until you understand why it's there. Don't take a fence down in your yard until you learn what it's keeping out.
I think that also has to go along with understanding people
Yeah.
too, not just not just ideas, because I feel like the bringing down the fence is kind of giving your opinion on someone before you can truly understand who they are.
That is a really good way to think about it.
Because you might see someone's action or see someone do a specific thing and you're like, well, why would they do it like that? But then you're like, okay, let's go ask them. And they have a completely evidence-based reason why they do this, this, and this. And you're like, well, that makes a lot of fucking sense. Yeah. I'm going to stop questioning people because that literally was exactly what I needed to understand. And I, that's just the idea of understanding people and why they do things.
Yeah.
Just makes it so much easier to
navigate life.
Yeah. And that's also just emphasizes, like, if you're curious about something and why they do something a certain way, just ask.
Yeah. This next one is, I'm sure we both have a pretty good understanding of this one. It's the sunk cost fallacy. You keep doing something because you've already spent time or money on it, like eating more dessert even when you're full because you paid for it. Exactly. That sunk costs we've talked about before. I feel like we don't have to go into depth on that one either.
The one thing I think I want to add to this, because I don't think I've ever talked about sunk costs in this aspect. For example, let's say you want to go do something, but you are kind of on the fence about it. Giving yourself that sunk cost, let's say it costs money.
Chesterton's fence?
Giving yourself that sunk cost of, let's say you don't necessarily want to go see a movie, or you can't fully commit to going to like a certain class or a workout or whatever. Putting money into that will be like, well, I already spent that money. I might as well go do it anyways. I might as well go to that class. It's kind of like gym membership. I already spent the money on gym membership. I might as well go. Or, I just had another idea, another thing that you could spend money on to make you go do something. Oh, it was like this. So let's say you want to make sure you hit a specific goal of, okay, I guess you could say going to the gym or just keeping yourself accountable, and say, okay, well, if I don't do this, I'm going to donate a certain amount of money to a charity that I absolutely don't support. So knowing that your money is going to go to someone that you don't support and you hate is going to make you go and do that because you don't want to give that money to that person. It's either a charity you don't support or someone that you don't like.
That's almost like
$10 or $15 just because. Yeah. But I think I think $10 to $15 is a little Make it an amount of money that's going to impact you a lot.
Yeah. Like $100 a day.
Yeah.
See, and I feel like that is still a sunk cost, but that is a crazy way to think about it at the same time. Because it's not a sunk cost unless you don't do what you were supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's just trying to prevent as many sunk costs as possible by staying to your word.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. All right, and then this is the last one of our 16, the Streisand effect. When you try to hide something, it often gets more attention. If you spill juice and hide it with a rug, people will probably notice the rug and find the spill. When you censor someone, you actually highlight them. So like when people get canceled because of the cancel culture today, all you're doing is putting their name out there. And that's also why they say like we shouldn't like be releasing the names and photos and shit of all these people that are shooting up schools because it gives them the attention that they wanted. And that's the reason that they were doing these things. Mm-hmm. And it really just, it does the exact same thing that they wanted. They're infamous for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
and
any type of
publicity is good publicity.
Exactly. There was actually this video that went around on TikTok this last week that of this white girl saying something pretty controversial.
Oh, yeah. And the one that was like, they're still fucking nerds, and these are the nerds that are running our country now. That one?
No.
Well, she said the N-word after.
I don't think so. I think that might have been a different video. But it's same concept. She did say that. But yeah, people are just like, oh my God, look at this video. Oh my God, look at this video. Oh my God, look at this video. This lady just lost her job. Now she got a new job because she has more followers now.
We are talking about the same lady.
Okay.
Yes, during that rant, she was like, You remember all those fucking nerds in high school, the kids that we used to bully and pick on that got bullied? Those are the people that grew up and are running our country now, and they're the one making the decisions for us, and they're still fucking nerds. And she was like,
I didn't
yeah,
hear
it was bad.
I only heard or saw like 11-second video of it, so it was probably like the back end of it.
I heard someone listening do it at work yesterday, and that's the only reason I know that.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, like that exact point is people are, hey, look at this video of this girl saying this and that and this, and it's on the news, and now she's getting all over Twitter, and she just got a new job, and blah 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 blah. And it's like, if people didn't give her this attraction because of her saying something that's honestly pretty common nowadays for no reason at all, she's getting what she wanted.
Yeah. Or like the woman that fucking fucked like 3/4 of her police force that she worked with.
Yes.
And then made herself the victim in the situation and got offers of like $20,000 to go be a stripper at a fucking strip club in Tennessee. And
it's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I mean, okay, this is separate from that exact thing, but I was going to say that was a good list and a lot of good mindsets you can take from that to be able to get more work done, feel better about certain things, stop listening to certain people.
Yeah.
You know, those lists are very insightful, and especially because everyone has like a different opinion on them. And you can look at it in a bunch of different ways, and like perspectives is like such a huge thing.
Yeah. I enjoy when I find a list, like, I mean, you've done it a couple times too, but when we find a list like this and just evaluate the whole list, I do enjoy doing that.
Mm-hmm. It's just a very like good way of looking about the world.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, because I was in my bookmarks and I found this, because I don't think I copied this into my notes. So Saudi Arabia is selling oil in Chinese RMB, euros, yen, and yuan. Those are the 4 currencies.
So technically, the U.S. would have to convert into those currencies to be able to purchase oil from them then?
Yeah. Yeah, they have to like transfer U.S. dollars
Which
to fucking
boosts
euros
the
or
economy of them
those countries instead of us.
That makes sense. Okay.
That's why
if you got everybody to switch over to whatever, that would make sense. That means not many people are exporting, or the U.S. doesn't get to export as many USD over time, and that would drop it. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And when the USD loses value, what happens when all these countries call their debt on us and we can't pay it because we can't just print more money because our dollar's valueless now?
Yeah, that's true. Huh.
Yeah.
It's insane, dude.
Yeah. Well, I've been talking for a while. Do you have any other topics you want to talk about?
It's a pretty simple topic that I've seen. I think I off the top of my head. Well, I wrote a simple thing about it. But did you see like the Apple event that just happened?
I heard that. I didn't see the event, but I've heard about it with the things they announced, like the fucking the tactiles popping up on the phone when you press your volume buttons because they're trying to go to a bezel that has no buttons eventually. And I heard people made a lot of money on Apple calls, but on like options trading.
Yeah, because after that, the stock went up a little bit. But there was just a couple things that I thought was pretty cool. The first one was Apple Math. Did you see Apple Math?
Yeah, where you type in an equation or you write an equation with an Apple Pencil and it automatically solves it. I did see that.
That's pretty sweet.
What else was there?
There was it's like the Apple Pay thing.
Yeah, you hold your phone over the other person's phone and you can pay. Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah. Other than that, I saw that they came out with like some AI thing. They actually came out with like their own
Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, they come out with that. Then they came out with like a Grammarly thing. Where you don't need you don't need to download Grammarly anymore. You just simply have the Apple-based grammar editor and stuff, which is actually crazy because, I mean, there was a whole list. I didn't save it, but on Twitter was like all the startups that Apple ended up like destroying because of what they came out with at WWDC or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because think about how many apps do Grammarly type stuff or the math thing that they're implementing. And It
A
is
lot of these
crazy
niche
how
apps are dying because Apple's monopolizing.
yeah. And it's I think it's very interesting how random it can be that Apple's just like, "Hey guys, here's 18 new things that we just came out with and you're fucked now." Like I just took all your ideas and you can't do anything about it because
We run the
we're
app store that
Apple,
you're going to sell
which
them on.
is very interesting because you heard about like the blood oxygen stuff that Apple went through, right?
The what?
With the watches, with like the Apple watches.
Yeah, how they didn't have the copyright for the fucking heart rate monitor or whatever.
Yeah, well, it was the blood oxygen monitor, and they
Or
ended up
yeah.
getting sued for it because it was supposedly taken from somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. I mean, basically, with that idea of what companies is Apple killing, it's like, did they get these ideas from someone else, or did they happen to just think of it themselves and make it better? It goes back to the idea of like, yes, these ideas might not be new, but if you do it the best, it's going to get that attention that you want it to, because if you, I mean, anything Apple that comes out is going to get publicity.
Yeah.
iOS 18 is crazy. Apple Intelligence harnesses the power of Apple Silicon to understand and create languages and images, take actions across apps, and draw from users' personal context to simplify and accelerate everyday tasks. So that's on the Mac then. Oh, yeah.
Elon Musk said that if Apple follows through with this intelligence shit, he will no longer allow any Apple devices anywhere near Tesla because apparently it could like steal proprietary information and shit.
That's crazy. I'm also wondering why he's not worried about like Microsoft and ChatGPT then, because probably doing the same thing. Like, I mean, that's literally what AIs do. It has to be fed data to be able to make answers and stuff about whatever those questions are sent into it. And people with GPT-4 coming out, have you seen videos of that too?
Isn't it Chat GPT 4 like OE?
Well, it's like 4 plus. So like whatever the 4 is, you can buy like the plus version of it.
Oh.
And you can do like, I mean, you might be right. I'm not 100% sure, but you can make it your Siri instead. Like you can change your Siri to the Chat GPT app instead. And it literally can like do your math for you, go through an entire personal interview, and like based on what you look like. And it's going to tell you how you look and how you feel presentable and this and that. It's going to have like some weird ass answers, but it's becoming very personalized, and it seems like it's starting to have a little bit of feelings, yeah. It's telling you how you look and stuff. So I couldn't imagine what's going to come out with like GPT-5 and how they're not worried about it.
Something I'm really curious about too is like, remember how growing up our parents would be like, when I was your age, we had to do everything longhand in math. We couldn't use calculators on tests. And then for us, it was like, yeah, we had to show work sometimes, but also there was a lot of things we had to use calculators for. Mm-hmm. So, like, is the generation not like now's kids, but the kids 10 years from now, are they going to be taught to use fucking Chat GPT or AI to fucking solve their math problems instead of a calculator?
I don't know. It's very possible, but it also just reminds me of an article I had to read in my ethics class, and it was about how screenwriters were losing their jobs because producers were deciding to use AI to write the scripts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretty much went on strike and had like a whole lawsuit about it and how they can't use or take over jobs.
The SAG-AFTRA strike? The Actors Union Guild?
Honestly, I think it was that. And I found that very interesting because they were also fighting not just simply for the actors, like the actors and the writers, but just for all jobs in general, that AI could simply take over.
Yeah.
And they had a good point in that. And it's like, it's obviously the people that know how to use AI and utilize it with their skills that they have are going to surpass people that just don't know how to use it in general.
Yeah.
But that was pretty much the whole idea of like the article, was that the conclusion was they can use AI, but it has to go through the screenwriters and the actors after they've already done like a whole screenwriting and stuff to make sure it's not falsifying any information or using some like a screenwrite or something that they've written previously that they didn't give the context or the permission to use before.
Yeah.
And it just kind of looks like that's how the idea of AI is going to be geared towards, is like obviously the use between kind of like the cross path between AI and humans.
Yeah.
and being able to use it together.
Because AI can't really create proprietary information like a human can. They can't create these things on their
It's
own.
not personalized. There's not going to be any feelings towards them. They can't be like, okay, well, I know this is how humans think. The AI is just going to go very specific. It's
fully logical.
I think it says that right now we're very. I don't know if it's general AI or there's two types of AI that there's the one that's if it got to that point it would be bad, and the other one is like normal. I think it's general AI is like the type that we have right now.
Yeah.
But then once the AI can obviously think for itself, because AI right now needs to be fed data and information to be able to make decisions on certain things.
Yeah.
And it's weird that there's even ethics that go into the idea of data being fed into it, because there was another article in that freaking class. Think about that. That was about how I think it was ChatGPT, or it might have been Bard, which was Microsoft's. But pretty much the way that it was fed information was
Googling
unethical.
Things.
They pretty much had a team. They had a team in some African country that was paid like $1 an hour to pretty much look at graphic images of pretty bad stuff to determine on whether or not the AI should be trained on it.
Yeah.
And they were only getting paid like $1 an hour. And then that data would get fed into the AI bot, because you think about it, if you're going to have a bot that's considered ethical, you need to feed it unethical things for it to recognize
that
what's
those
ethical
are
and what's not. Yeah. And it's just weird to think that they literally have to go in and here's this folder of very bad pictures and photos and videos of children, this and that. And you're like, I'm going to feed it to this and be like, hey, this is bad. Yeah. And not only did they not do that themselves within the country that it was in, that it was created in, they were like, we're just going to outsource this to a third world country, and pay them absolutely nothing to do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That's economics, though. That's how most fucking businesses work.
Yep.
High scale businesses.
I saw something that something that says it's packed in the US means that it was bought from China and then put in a plastic bag in the US.
No, assembled. Assembled in USA means the parts came from China and then it was put together in the US.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Because we have the exact same fucking Twitter timeline.
Yep.
I saw the exact same tweet.
That's crazy.
Are they still called tweets now that it's called X? I just realized that. Are they called X's now?
I don't know. What are tweets called now? Posts.
A post.
Oh yeah, it is.
X.
Yeah, I guess it's not a retweet; it's a repost or quote post. I guess that makes sense.
That kind of makes me angry. I didn't think about that until just now.
Repost. Really? And I need to log into X and see what it says. Quote tweet, or doesn't it? What does it say? Repost. Yeah, it says repost. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. Did you are you interested in any games have you seen, wasn't there a fest recently that came out with a bunch of games?
The NX Fest, I think it's still going. We're Next Fest now through June 17th.
Huh.
Play free demos, watch developer live streams, wish list your favorites to get notified when they release.
I think there was a game, it was called No Room in Hell. That's a first person, super in-depth zombie game that looks pretty sweet. Dude, I feel like any zombie game that looks like that comes out makes me very intrigued, because the zombie games are freaking sick. But people are like, we just want freaking Left 4 Dead 3.
Yeah.
Left 4
Wait, no, Left 4 Dead.
That's what the
is it 3? I thought 4 came out already. Or 3. I thought 3 came out already, and we were waiting on 4.
I don't know, because that one game came out. It was I don't remember what it was called, but it was bad. It was like a Left 4 Dead game.
I know, yeah, the one that released 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Fuck, I had it on Xbox. I can't remember what it was called.
I thought the game was literally had 4 in it.
Left 4 Dead. No, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 are the only Left 4 Dead. Fuck, yeah, I can't remember what it's called. It was that bad. If I had it on Steam, I'd be able to look, but I only had it on the Xbox Game Pass.
What is it called, dude? I don't remember. Back for Blood.
Back for Blood.
That's what it was. I think that wasn't it made by the same creators? I don't remember.
Yeah. I think it was like the creators of Left 4 Dead along with another company. Well, Valve made Left 4 Dead, right?
Valve did make Left 4 Dead, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was Valve and like Bethesda or Ubisoft or one of the other big. It was a collaboration game.
Huh. Interesting. I'm trying to think if there's any other games that have come out other than Black Ops 6 that I'm not going to buy, even though I've been playing Warzone and I bought the Battle Pass.
Body Cam.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to be an early riser to that, if I want to be a follower once it gets huge. So it looks sweet for sure.
This could be my Fortnite. How you started playing Fortnite in like the week it came out. I'm gonna be a pro body cam player.
I didn't realize it was like a like a game that you fight against other people. I thought it was more of like a, what is the other game that you like first person and you go in and like do objectives and stuff?
And it looks like that?
No, it doesn't look like that. It's something else. I was gonna look up Steam, but I'm on my Mac, so I can't necessarily do that. I don't remember what it was called, but it's hard for me now though, because like I bought a couple games the last couple of years and I just literally haven't played them. Like Hogwarts Legacy, I bought that shit for $70 and I played like 2 hours or 3 hours of it, and then I couldn't refund it.
That was good. That one was worth the play. I played most of it.
Yeah,
I had to beat the final boss.
I haven't found myself wanting to sit down for lots of like big period of time
to
finish a game, but I'm excited for, what is it, June or July 10th, because that's when my class ends, and I don't start class for the fall semester until August 22nd.
So you got a month and a half.
I have a month to do nothing,
whatever the fuck you want. Yeah,
thankfully, and then I have a 4-class semester, unfortunately, but I don't know. We'll figure it out. I want to stream again, dude.
I do too.
Everyone fall solid FPS.
I'll start streaming too. Let's get it going.
Yeah, let's do it. All the innate domains, come on over. I think that's a good wrapping up point. We had a solid conversation there. We were at an hour, and I was like, dude, I don't know what the fuck we're going to talk about.
Me too. We hit like the hour and 4 minute mark, and I'm like, fuck. Let me go into my. I had a lot more, but it just wasn't. I wasn't feeling a lot of the shit I had written down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, let me go into my bookmarks and find that razor thing, because I felt like we could get a lot out of that, and that.
Yeah,
I mean, lasted 45 minutes.
I do really enjoy going like on those lists and kind of giving our thoughts about it, because they're very insightful for sure, and I like hearing our perspectives on both of them.
Yeah,
definitely. But
all right, well, I'm gonna go cut Chad's nails really quick, and then I will call you back on Discord, and we will see you guys next week.
Yep, see you guys next week for the defining 20th episode of the Innate Domain podcast.
Wait, what is the number?
20.
Svansik.
See you next week for Svansik.
Svansik.